Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to What's Trending on USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and we have quite a show for you today, as always. Joining me is my friend and the co-host of this show, CATHY Fulton. Let's welcome her, and then we'll bring out our guest. Hi, CATHY.
Good morning once again.
Once again, here we are, from aging gracefully with humor to what's trending, and then soon to be talking heads. So, CATHY, another great show today before this, and this one's going to be fantastic. We have a guest who is joining us again from another program. I love that when people come back and visit us again.
I do too. And as we were discussing backstage, this topic is so on trend, and I think it's going to be very informative, and I think it will shed a lot of light on things that people can do that they really hadn't thought of. So she's got a great book and great ideas. So I can't wait to bring her out.
I'm excited as well. And for folks who are wondering what is the topic today, we're really diving into something that for so long people have not wanted to discuss, and the fear factor about aging in place. Where do we go? Being a caregiver, what's involved with that? People have not wanted to talk about it, and people have been missing out on opportunities by speaking with someone like our guest today to learn that there's so much more that we can do to help one another and even help ourselves as we are in the aging process.
Right. And I couldn't agree more with what you said. And I just think that it's so important, just based on my experience with my own mother. It is so important to just have those painful conversations, and even going a step further, getting it all down on paper, whether it's through an attorney or whether you write it out yourself and have it notarized. Just getting a plan in place for the what ifs. I am a very self-professed overthinker, but with my mom, this is one time where I think it paid off, and it paid off for her because we had those very difficult conversations. And even to the point when I took her to her neurologist, he even said, work with CATHY to get this straight, so that she's not backed into a corner, making decisions for you and putting you in places that you don't ever want to be. So, and it's not just a home, it's just putting you in places that's, you can generalize that as well. So anyway, but
yes. Yeah. And I think if we change our perspective, that when we have a plan in place, it's really part of the gift, which is that we continue to live. So either we're going to continue being here or we're not going to be here anymore. So if we are here, let's know what that's going to look like so that everyone has that peace of mind. And I think that that's sort of empowering.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, but really and truly, at the end of the day, I don't think anybody really want someone else making decisions for them, for their life, where they're going to live, what that's going to look like, who's going to be involved, how much it's going to cost. I mean, those are all, it's bigger than a white elephant in the room, just because it's such a depressing conversation, but it happens every day, and or it needs to happen every day. I don't think enough people are having these conversations. So
agreed. So before we bring out Erin, I'm going to spotlight you, and I would love for you, for people who are joining us for the first time, just give a little bit of background about you and why you wanted to do this show, What's Trending.
Well, so I have owned an interior design firm for 22 years, and basically what I do is I help people create beautiful spaces that they love to live in, because there's nothing worse than designing a space, paying all this money for furniture and things, artwork and accessories, and then you hate it. So that's the main point of my design firm. But then I also have a home care agency for the elderly, and our primary mission is to help them age in place and to get a plan in place for them if there isn't already one in place with their entire family. But the reason that I wanted to do what's trending is I wanted it to be fun, but I wanted it to be informative. When people watch, I want them to walk away going, wow, I didn't think about that. Or, gee, I always knew about that topic, but I didn't realize that it had so much more additional information. And so I want there to be a great takeaway. And so far, I think between the two of us, Dr. JACALYN, we've succeeded in that.
Yay! We do have a comment. Yes. Hi, Ann O'Connell from OC Publishing. Boy, this one's timely for me. And Ann, I did see an email from you, I think yesterday. We'll be getting back to you soon. So thanks for being here. So Kathy, let's bring out our guest. Erin has been with us before. I think it was last week. And yes, she is a published author. She is a public speaker. She's a trainer, and she's a badass advocate. Yes. Welcome to the show. You are on mute, dear. Sorry.
I said, good morning. Thank you for having me. I said, are you sick of me yet? You just had me last week.
No, not at all.
No. It's a great show filled with so much information that is really important that people need to know. So, Erin, you have an amazing backstory yourself, which I'd love for you to share with our audience. And then we'll get into all these other things that you're doing and how you're helping people.
Great. So what Kathy talked about is completely relevant with the baby boomers and our parents are aging. My story is a little different. It's not about my parents. It's actually about my sister. So in 2017, my sister, who was also my best friend, was diagnosed with 3 diseases. She was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And then they found out that the cancer, which she had probably had for about a year and wasn't aware of, caused an autoimmune disease. And then the autoimmune disease caused a lung disease. And the lung disease was actually the really bad news because it was rare, it was aggressive, it wasn't good news. My sister was only 47 years old at the time, so she was young. She was a former college athlete. She was a very active mom. So this came as a real shock to my family. And over this period of time, I lived in Dallas, Texas. My sister lived in Charleston, South Carolina, and I would travel back and forth to support her and her family and my family because my mom and my brother lived down the street. So as background, for the last 20 plus years, I've been in the pharmaceutical industry. So when they mentioned that I've been a trainer, it's not a exercise trainer. Some people think that's what my title is, but it's actually a pharmaceutical sales trainer. So I do learning and development for a small pharmaceutical team. And what that means is that over the last 20 years, I have been not only doing it myself, but I've been teaching others how to speak to physicians, how to ask good questions. If you have a difficult conversation that needs to be had, or you get pushback from a physician, I teach reps how to handle that. These skills and knowledge really transferred to advocating for my sister. And so even though it wasn't in the plan, my career plan, it did come in handy and it helped me to advocate for her, whether she was homebound or if she was in the hospital. And we experienced both with her diseases. So after, 13 months, my sister's body just really deteriorated, unfortunately. And she did pass away a few days shy of her 48th birthday. And so obviously my family was heartbroken. She had 2 young girls, and that in itself is heartbreaking to lose their mother at a young age. And so I felt like I had to do something. I had to give back to the world somehow partly for my grieving process and also to honor my sister, who I just adored and was so wonderful to me growing up. And so I wrote the book, Badass Advocate, Becoming the Champion Your Seriously Ill Loved One Deserves. And so at the beginning, we talked about kind of elderly and, the baby boomers growing old and kind of needing some support, and we can dive into that. This book has tips for that generation and supporting anyone that is a parent that needs that extra support, or anyone else. It could be a child, it could be a sibling, it could be a spouse who is dealing with a serious disease at a younger age.
Wow.
Erin, as I mentioned when we saw you last week, thank you for sharing your story. It's got to be difficult to relive it each and every time, knowing that you're doing it, though, to help other people. So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
Erin, one thing that you brought up is, or you made the point that your sister was your best friend.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that really made a perfect dovetail for you to be her advocate, because you knew so much about her history and her medical history. And I don't think that people realize how important that is. I mean, I always use the case of my mom, because that's the only example that I really have to make this point. But thank goodness I knew so much about her previous health condition and surgeries that she'd had, and even right down to the metal earpiece that she had in her ear, because she couldn't have an MRI. She could only have CT scans. I mean, it's things like that people really need to know. And so that you can be this great advocate. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
100%. And I'm so glad you brought this up, because it's something that people don't know. The gift that you give and that you bring to the doctors, especially the hospital room, when maybe the patient isn't well enough to speak for themselves, or maybe they're on some medication, makes their mind a little fuzzy. It also can happen, if they have dementia, Alzheimer's. You have this power, this gift that you need to use. And that is, this person intimately. So if you know that their behavior is off, so in addition to what you're saying, Kathy, you're talking about their medical history. Yes, that's one piece of it. That's very important. The other piece of it is that you know them so well that if they're acting strange or something seems off, voice that. Don't assume that the healthcare providers are going to pick up on that. Most likely they will not, because they don't know them. This is a stranger to them. And even if it's their doctor that they've had for, 20 years, a lot of the baby boomers, they may find a physician that they love. They've lived there in this town since they were kids. They may have the same physician since they were, little or a teenager or in their 20s. But they're seeing them maybe once or twice a year. You see them every day. It's totally different perspective. So voice that. Don't hold back. It helped with my sister, because she had this lung disease, and what happened was the CO2 would get trapped. And when that happens, it can make you act kind of strange. And so we voiced that and several times, and it did make a difference in her care. And that's your goal as a badass advocate. You can't cure them, but you can make a difference in their care.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Erin. I have a question for you, and this, I think, is kind of a tough one as a subsequent question to what you just shared. So when you are the caregiver and you realize that there are certain things you now have to do that you didn't have to do before, which could involve bathing, toileting, those types of things. Where is the line between showing respect to the loved one and also not feeling comfortable doing those things for the person, but yet knowing that a third party might not be what the patient wants?
Yeah, I think Kathy sort of addressed this at the start, was that you really need to have some open conversations. I could bathe my sister, and I was comfortable doing that, but we also were sisters. That's different, right? If I had, my mother-in-law or father-in-law and we were taking care of them, I don't think I would be comfortable doing that. And I don't know if they would be either. And so, you definitely need to have that open conversation. And don't forget to ask your doctor, call your insurance company, call the patient's insurance company, and see what is covered, because sometimes you can have those services covered. And so if cost is an issue, make sure you do your due diligence and that you look into it. But yes, it can be something that's very uncomfortable depending on who the patient is. And they may not want it, but not feel comfortable to speak up. Or so as soon as there's a diagnosis or you're starting to see some behavior changes, especially with elderly, I would say have that conversation as soon as possible, because if the patient gets to the point where they cannot have that conversation, you're just guessing. And that is a situation you don't want to be in, where you don't know what they want or how to handle the situation. You want to give them their wishes.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think also, if the patient wants the caregiver to actually do those things for them and the caregiver doesn't want to do it, then there's that tug at the heartstrings and that sense of guilt. So I think that's a tough one.
It is a tough one. And it's funny, I just posted something on social media about giving yourself grace. So just remember that, because, and I know of a personal situation, not me, but someone close to me had this situation where their mother wanted them to do a lot of the caregiving, and they wanted to do most of it, but not all of it, for various reasons, being a mom, having a full-time job, all these things. And there's a point where you need to say, Mom, I love you and I want to do as much as I can, but I also have to balance all the rest of my life. I have young children, I have a career. So what can we have someone else come in and do? And you will have to be really honest. You can't do everything. You're not a superhero, right? So do the best that you can and give yourself grace. That's my best advice. Don't put the pressure on yourself that you have to be perfect. And I like to say that because the term badass advocate sounds like I've got to be this superwoman or this superman. Not true at all. It just means that you're having a voice for someone else, and that you are willing to kind of step out of your comfort zone to get them the best care possible. It doesn't mean that you have to personally give them the best care possible, but you will find a way and you won't give up.
Erin, I hear you on all the points about taking care of a loved one, and just rolling back to like 2013, when my mom had, all these health issues, the strokes and so on and so forth. And I found myself in a very odd position. And, I just remember discussing it with different people that I was close to, and they were like, I mean, how can you do this? How can you shower your mom? How
Mhm.
can you take care of all the hygiene issues, the toileting, the diapers, and it just, at first, I'll be completely honest, I didn't want to do it. But I saw in her, anytime that I would bring up the topic of, how about we bring someone in, we get a caregiver, blah, blah, blah. I could see what I sensed is almost, it would be humiliating to her.
Mhm.
And look, I mean, let's qualify. Every situation is different. Everyone is wired differently. But for those that are listening to this that are on the fence about it, I just had to put things in the proper perspective and the proper context. And because more often than not, like with my mom, I just thought, how would I feel? I think that I would want someone close to me if they were willing to help me with these very tender-hearted things that you're asking people to do, invasive things. And I mean, it's gotten easier clearly over the years, but I mean, my husband asked me all the time, how do you do this? I mean, because on top of it all, my mom has colitis. So there are frequent outbreaks. There are frequent explosions. And, it's just, you just do it. I mean, I mean, the showering, I mean, so many times she really doesn't want to take a shower, but I demand it because she's got to stay clean.
Hmm.
I mean, it's almost mechanical. I try to incorporate love into it, but I mean, it's like we have to stay on point. We have to get this done, and so I just encourage those that are listening that feel like they really want to give it a try. It's just I don't know. I just kind of had to work on my mindset with this.
It is a
I
mindset.
don't know if that helps anybody, but
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is that's why that conversation is so important because like you said, it'll be different with everyone.
Mhm.
You know, every situation is going to be different. And so just one thing that I talk about in my book is creating a mind. If this brings you ladies back to high school English class, but I love creating a mind map and it's a great way to come up with a solution. So when you were talking, Kathy, I thought about how every situation is different. And is there a compromise? Is there a way that we can, yes. So for you, you were able to do it, you know, and some people will be able to do that. Like for my sister, no brainer, it was fine. And it wasn't my responsibility all the time because I didn't live there. But if I did, it wouldn't have bothered me at all. Now, like I said, some other people in my life, I don't think I'd be comfortable doing that. So I'm trying to think, how would I solve that issue? What's the solution there? Create a mind map. And you can do this with anything with caregiving, where you start, for those of you not familiar with the mind map, create in the middle, get a piece of paper, blank piece of paper, and in the center, write down whatever the issue is. And it could be big picture or it can be something small like bathing and toileting, you know, personal care, something like that. And then just start to jot down ideas and don't stop your mind from writing down anything. Doesn't matter if it sounds ridiculous or so far-fetched because it may lead to a solution. So, you know, Kathy, we're kind of talking about two solutions. Either you do it or you hire someone full-time. Maybe it's a combination. Maybe there's another way to do it. Or maybe, you know, and I know this isn't your scenario, but let's say your mom had a sister who lived not far away and she was more comfortable. She wanted someone close to your family, but you didn't want to do it. Maybe that's another solution. It's someone else that they would feel comfortable doing it. So there could be many different approaches. It's just finding out what works for you and the patient, really.
Right,
And
right.
Erin,
Oh, sorry. Just one thing to follow up with that. I think the bottom line for my mom and probably for anyone else out there that is having toileting issues, you know, these very private
Yes.
issues, is what I wanted to do was maintain her integrity. That was really, and it's like, how do we do that? And so, you know, I've just learned to do it. And, you know, because I also think about, she has such a horrible time with balance, and I'm almost like a mother bear around her. You know, I mean, just really like a mother bear, because I don't want her to fall, because anyway, but the bottom line for me was, how do we maintain the integrity?
Mhm.
Because with her cognitive impairment, she is a different person now. And I just remember who she was and how she would not want to be going through these things. So anyway, that was my point. I'm sorry I interrupted you, Dr. JACALYN.
no, that's okay. They're great points. A question I have for you, Erin, is before we are aging, we have certain things that we do. We change our sheets so many times, we do our laundry, we clean our home, we shower so many times. But sometimes people don't want to do those things anymore. And as a caregiver, there could be a constant struggle because in order to keep that integrity and health, certain things should be done, but the person or persons no longer want to do that. So what is the answer then?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So I talk a lot about this in the book. It's actually the number one principle, which is create a support team. So from day one of, like I said, whether it's a diagnosis or it's, you know, maybe you see a decline in someone's health, focus on creating a support team however you can. It could be family that lives close by. Also, just so you know, family who lives far away. I live far away from my sister. They also can play a role. Is it also neighbors or close friends that can come and help? It doesn't have to be something they do every day. You talked about changing the sheets, that doesn't need to be done daily, but that's a role that someone could play. Maybe it's someone who's retired, or maybe you have a friend who's a stay-at-home mom who, when their kids are in school, she'd be willing to come every Monday and change the sheets. I don't know. I'm just throwing out random examples. Get creative. That's the whole point. Think of your support team, who the patient wants to be part of the support team. That is important. Going back to what Kathy just said, a lot of this is intimate. It's private. So you don't want to make up this list. It's not your support team. I mean, it is in a way, but it's more of the patient's support team and who can play a role. Some people will play a major role, like Kathy in her mom's life. She plays the #1 role of caregiver, but there are lots of ways you can have people come and help. And then, so that's all free help, right? The other one I didn't mention was community services. So if they have a serious illness, look at organizations. Sometimes they have people like my sister's gone, but I'm involved with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society because that's close to my heart. So, maybe it's someone that has part of an organization that deals with the same disease. They've lost their loved one, or they've dealt with it in the past and they're passionate about it and they're willing to volunteer and help. Or it could be a local church. So there's lots of ways you can get help. And it could be with smaller tasks that can just take off that burden, for lack of a better word, where you don't have to worry about it. You can focus on the big tasks. And then there's the paid help, which you talked about. So see what you can have, who you can have come in. Can you have someone come in and change the sheets and keep the house clean and do that once a week, twice a month, whatever it is that you can afford. Just get help wherever you can. And sometimes those organizations can help with those things as well.
Thank you. And a follow-up question is, what if, let's just use the sheets, for example. What if the patient says, I don't want my sheets changed. I don't want you to touch them. Then what do you do? Are you disrespecting them by when they're not there? They're in another room, then you go and do it. I don't know what the answer is to this one.
Yeah, it's a hard one. I think, again, if it's a patient with, I'm not an expert with dementia or Alzheimer's, but that's part of their health, right? So that's where you can't, I guess in those scenarios, you can't just abide by what the patient says, because that's a detriment to their health. And then that's an issue. And if they're giving pushback because they've got some of those issues with their mind is not all there, that's where you kind of have to take control. And I didn't mention that my dad had been sick years ago as well. And there's a point where he was kind of getting a little loopy and saying some things and acting a little weird. You have to do it in the best interest of the patient. May not make them happy. That's really hard. But I'm not an expert in dementia or Alzheimer's, so I can't speak to that. But you have to take care of their health, no matter what. Yeah. That's what they would want if they were with it.
Yes, I might be able to wait. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to talk over. I think
that's okay. I was just going to show, we've got another comment, and you left YouTube. You're over on Facebook. I love it. You're all over. You are all hitting on so many issues I'm dealing with now. Thank you. And I have to find some middle ground between superhero and badass. I just ordered your book, Erin. Yay. I love when that happens.
Thank you, Anne. And I love that, superhero and badass. Just remember, to give yourself grace. It's the most important thing. It's not easy what you're going through, whatever the situation is. It's so hard, and you have to take care of yourself too. So we keep talking about taking care of the patient, but we haven't really talked about taking care of yourself. And Kathy, I know you want to say something, but I just want to throw that out there while Anne spoke up.
Well, I just wanted to, I think perhaps I have a suggestion for those that are listening. This is per your question, Dr. JACALYN, relative to how do we get the sheets changed? How do we convince them, yes, you do need to take a shower, those kinds of things. And a lot of times, just in my business in general, there will be pushback, particularly from the clients that have the cognitive impairment. And so I train my caregivers to be basically like, look, they are the client, but quite frankly, you're in charge. Okay. And so we kind of have to treat them not as a child, but as you would tell your toddler, okay, get ready, we're going to the store. Or let's put your toys away. We're going to take a bath now. My point is, you don't ask. You just say in a very firm voice, nice, but firm, this is what we're doing next. Because I've had to use that with my mom. And what makes it even more difficult is when you have a caregiver, such as myself, and there's a lot of history there. The elderly person or the person that you're taking care of, they know that history, and they know your buttons, and they know how they can walk all over you, or whatever the case may be. But I have found with my mom, because she can be very difficult at times, that I have just taken the bull by the horns, and I'll say, okay, so let's put your book away, or we need to come inside. And because now we're going to take a shower and I'm going to wash your hair. And she'll always say, oh, we're not washing my hair today. And I'm like, yes, we are. And then she'll get in the shower and she'll be sitting in her shower chair, and I'll shower her first. And then I'm like, okay, bend your head back. I'm going to wash your hair now. And she's like, oh no. And then I'm like, too late. I mean, it's just like, I know I'm probably going to get turned into, no,
it's cute. She sounds really cute.
But it's like, she doesn't have time to, she doesn't have time to backpedal out of it. I mean, what is she going to do? Get up and leave? But it's like, it's just like, it's not going to happen. So I don't know if that helps anyone out there, but you don't ask them, you just tell them in a very polite way. And I know that that's easier said than done, because I mean, my mom, Peg Schuler, she has always driven the bus. Nobody's ever told her, scoot over, I'd like to take the wheel. Never. So this is, I hope that kind of puts her personality into perspective. We're doing it Peg's way. There is one way, Peg's way.
And there's a lot on social media. If you are dealing with someone that has Alzheimer's, there are several women I've seen on social media. So if this is new to you and you're trying to navigate this whole world, I would go look up some people, and they give fantastic advice. And so that's why I'm not diving too deep into it myself, because that's not my area of expertise and I don't want to pretend it is. But there are plenty of people out there that will, like yourself, Kathy, that are dealing with it. They've had years of experience and they know how to handle these very difficult, sensitive situations.
Yeah, it's just but it's like the first time that I decided, okay, I'm done asking, I'm taking charge. And I remember where she was. She was on my back porch. I said, okay, you need to finish reading that paragraph. And like I said, we're going to go in and we're going to take a shower and we're going to wash your hair right now. And there was pushback on the washing hair, but she closed her book and she got up, and I'm like, am I having out of body experience? Is this really happening? She's actually doing what I said to do. Oh my, there is a God. There's a God. She has handed over the steering wheel to me. Yay.
Yeah.
Anne has a comment. It's a daily challenge. What works one day doesn't work the next. Kathy, I think you were sharing that, and that's fairly accurate, right, Erin?
Yes. You don't know what every day is going to bring. So that's why, I talked about self-care and taking those breaks. That's also where that support team can come in. If you can have someone just to give you a break, whether it's 30 minutes, an hour, if the patient's napping. For my situation, my sister slept a lot because, that's what we do when we're sick, right? We sleep. And so she would rest. That was my time to take a break. When she was hospitalized, you have a little bit more freedom. I could go for a walk. So sometimes I would do that. I would walk down to a local coffee shop, not hang out really, because I didn't want to leave her too long. I was fearful something would happen, not because the doctors and nurses weren't taking great care of her, but I just wanted to be there if she woke up. So I would walk down, get myself a coffee, get some fresh air, come right back. That was enough to kind of re-energize me. And I felt like, okay, now I can sit here with her a little bit longer. If they are sleeping and you're sitting there, can you read a book? Can you do something to occupy your mind and maybe meditate? I've got into meditation after my sister passed away. I kind of feel like I wish I got into it before, not only for myself, but I wish I had taught her how to meditate just for her to calm herself. So I think that could be a real gift. Either way, no matter what your thing is, it could be exercise, prayer, it could be anything. Take some time for yourself as many times as you can throughout the day, even if you're not leaving the patient technically. You don't need to leave the patient to meditate or pray. Exercise may be a little different. I mean, unless you want to get down and do sit-ups in the room, which you could. Get creative is what I'm saying. And just make sure that you take care of yourself. It's just as important. And a lot of times we neglect ourselves because we're so focused on the patient as well as everyone else. There's not just the patient in your life. You have many people that you're taking care of and worrying about. So
And
that's
Great feedback. I have a something that I did when my dad was in the hospital. I think he was there for 35 days or more. And I think I've showed this before. I had a bed brought in, and my mom and I took turns staying overnight. And for me, I didn't want to leave because, you know, he might need something or wake up. So what I did was, at the time I had a Walkman, and I would walk around the hospital floor listening to music, getting laps in. So I was getting my exercise even at 2 or 3 in the morning. And then I felt at least I had some space for myself. And then during the daytime, I would go down to the cafeteria, get something, and then come back up. So at least I was getting out of the room, because you need to at least have some space for yourself too.
You do. And that hospital, I mean, 35 days, if you've never had anyone hospitalized, that is a really long time. I forget, my sister's was maybe the longest was 23 or 26. And that felt like forever that she was in the hospital. So it's wearing on them. They start to get, I forget what it's called. Maybe you ladies will remember, but it's called something. You start to get like delusional when you're in a hospital for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like it impacts the loved ones that are sitting there day in and day out. And again, I was blessed because I have a tight knit family. We took shifts. And at one point when she was in for that 26 days, I had her make a list of who she would be comfortable with coming to visit her, because I wanted to also get her to see some fresh faces. When you're seeing the same people, sometimes we get worn down, we get so serious, and we forget to laugh, we forget to tell stories. You know, we forget to make life fun. We're so focused on the negative and the sadness and the fear that we forget, let's also bring in some joy here, you know, whenever you can, because it's a very difficult situation, no matter what it is that you're dealing with. And so we brought in some fresh faces, and they flew down and they stayed with my sister one night in the hospital. So we had a rotation, just a few cousins and aunts. And my sister kind of came back to life. And not long after that, she was discharged from the hospital. And I believe in medicine. Absolutely. It's not all because of that, but I do think having these people show her love and bringing back that energy almost got her to start fighting again, you know, because she was probably so worn down from being in the hospital and so sick.
Well,
Wow.
you know, you mentioned to your point about like when the elderly are in the hospital, like even a day or two, they do, regardless of whether they have cognitive impairment or not, a huge majority of them will they get basically delusional. And I mean, one of the last times that my mom was in the hospital, I mean, I won't go into that whole story, but she thought that I had gotten her a room in a hotel, and she was trying to get me a room in that hotel too. And I was like, I'm good. But then there's the other side of it, as to where the delusion, it has begun to take on a whole different, it's a whole different animal. She developed the mindset that I had then put her there, and that she was never leaving. And so you can only imagine her despair and her meltdowns, to the point where she was yanking out IVs. And so that's what, like earlier when I said I'm kind of like a mother bear, because I try to be so protective of her, because I don't want her to go back into the hospital, because it is emotionally, it is horrific on her emotionally, but it's almost equally as emotionally horrific for me, because I mean, she will begin the phone calls the moment that she wakes up, she will begin calling me going, Kathy, this is your mother. I want you to come pick me up now. And that's the narrative. And so I just, and I feel horrible, because I can't make her understand that she has a health concern. She has a health issue that they're trying to fix. And you know, but even though I will camp out there all day and stay there. I mean, this is all during COVID, so they wouldn't let anyone spend the night.
Right.
And otherwise I would have. But I just wanted to speak to what I know about the elderly and how hospital visits can really impact them very, very quickly. And people begin to go, "Oh my gosh, is this early onset dementia?" I mean, I can't speak to all that other than probably it's just the delusion that comes with being in the hospital a short time. It's just too new to them.
Yes. And the doctors used to tell us that, you know, every time my sister was admitted, she is going to take some steps back. So that was really discouraging. So a lot of times that's out of your control. There's nothing you can do. But at the same time, if there are things you can do and learn to take care of them at home and do your best to prevent that from happening, do that. Like one frustration that my family had was sometimes it felt like we were being reactive rather than proactive. And that was because of what the doctors were telling us. And I finally said to them, like, what can we do? We basically keep bringing her back to the hospital. This isn't good. And with her disease, because it was so serious and aggressive, there wasn't a ton that we could have done, but at least we can catch things earlier to hopefully prevent her from getting to the point where she has to be readmitted, you know? And so eventually we got her like a feeding tube that helped to bring up her strength. I mean, that's part of being that badass advocate where you may get pushback from doctors or whoever. Keep pushing for things. If you feel like they're not getting the care that they need and deserve, keep pushing for those things. The other point I want to make, Kathy, is you talked about, you know, you were there all the time. First of all, it's mentally draining on you, even though you want to be there for your mom. Like, you're a busy lady, as we learned at the beginning. You have a lot going on and you have your own life too, in addition to taking care of your mom. So one thing I recommend to families a lot is the palliative care team. So especially if they're hospitalized, they're an in-house team. If you're not familiar, it's not hospice care. It's very different. It's anyone with a serious illness can take advantage of the palliative care. So these are doctors and nurses, social workers who will deal with all sorts of things. Those difficult conversations we were talking about at the very start. They will also deal with comfort care. They will talk about, they will recommend things like financially, if you're need some assistance, they will connect you with the right people. They have so many resources and information. If the patient has children, like my sister, young children, the hospital can be a scary place. They can help you with that. So try and get the help, even that's kind of like your support team within the hospital versus at the start, I was kind of talking about at home when the patient's homebound. Use that palliative care team. Get them involved, see how they can support you. You know, if you can't be there, especially with COVID, I know there's been more restrictions. I think they're letting up somewhat. But ask the palliative care team how you can get extra support, whether you're there or not there. They have all sorts of resources in the hospital. One thing my sister loved was the dog program. So the dogs would come and visit her every so often. My family loves dogs, and that can do a lot for a patient's mental health when they're in the hospital. So there's plenty of ways that you can get help. You just need to proactively ask for it. Sometimes they don't bring it to you. So make sure that you just ask questions.
Great tips, Erin. Thank you so much. We have to close out the show, but I just want to share a personal experience very quickly. I had a very good friend who had cancer. She was sick for a long time and she was in the hospital, and I went to see her, and they had her hair done and her nails were done. And she had this beautiful rug, like a faux fur rug not a rug, a throw, whatever it is, over her. And when she moved, you could see all the tubes, but she felt good about the way she looked and having people come and visit her because someone had taken the steps to actually have her makeup done, have her hair done, and her nails.
Yeah. And that's part of her mental health, right? And then if you're mentally feeling good, like I mentioned that my sister earlier, you can start to fight. You can have more strength to fight the disease, you know, and it's not always up to the patient. We know that. I'm not implying that, but it's really their mental health is a big part of it. And there's just so many different ways you can help. So ask that palliative care team. They definitely will be there to help you.
Thank you very much. And Erin, can you please give your contact information for people who cannot read the banner or listening on the radio?
Absolutely. So I have a website. It's very easy. It's badassadvocate.com. And then my email is Erin, ERIN, at badassadvocate.com. I'm on every social media that you can think of: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok. I make some videos on there with some tips. I am at Badass Advocate on all of them, but TikTok, I'm at Erin Galyean. So that's my name, which you can find on my website if that makes it easier, because the spelling might be more difficult.
Thank you very much. And Anne has a follow-up comment. Awesome advice. Thanks for watching and commenting, Anne. We really appreciate you. All right, Erin, thank you again for being here. And we look forward to having you back on one of our other shows, and wishing you continued success.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Erin, so much. It was great talking with you again.
You too.
Thank you. Thanks for coming back. Bye.
Bye.
Well, Kathy, great tips that she shared again today that you and I and Anne and other people around the world can take to heart and start implementing immediately.
Yeah, and I hope people that are watching will go to Erin's website, because as you showcased on the last show that we did with Erin, she has a great website and full of information, full of tips. So I would encourage everyone to check it out, as well as your book.
Yes, I wanted to pull up the website, but we ran out of time. So Kathy, as you know, we have your talking heads coming up momentarily. So I'm going to spotlight you again. And if you can just share with people, what are you going to be presenting in this episode today on Talking Heads? And then how can people reach out to you to work with you for your interior design business or your home care business?
So today we are going to be talking about the top trends in bathrooms in 2022. And so if you are needing any interior design advice or need someone to work with, feel free to reach out to me. My email address is kathyfulton1965@gmail.com. And you can even call me. I'm at 703-895-3798. And if you're needing home care help as well, you can reach me at the same email, and you can call the same phone number.
Thank you, Kathy. And, you know, as a ulcerative colitis patient, I'm really interested in bathroom trends because I spend a lot of time in the bathroom. So so I'm excited for your show. You always have great visuals as well. So please do stay tuned wherever you are watching. Stay there. And Kathy and I will be back momentarily. So Kathy, I'll let you go, get ready, and I'll see you shortly.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. So, as I mentioned in our earlier show, we have a full day of broadcasting every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We also have some fabulous shows on Mondays and Tuesdays. If you would like to have your own show on our platform, please do reach out. If you'd like to be a co-host, if you'd like to be considered as an expert presenter like Kathy on Talking Heads, or if you'd like to join our elevated listening team, please do reach out. You can go to my two websites, usaglobaltv.com and also drjacalyn.com. And in terms of watching our shows, if you're watching on our YouTube channel, USA Global TV, you'll see that all of our shows, we have 27 shows a week now. They are organized into playlists, and you can find your favorite shows there. If you are there, please do subscribe. I just checked yesterday on YouTube, which is one of altogether 23 platforms, I think, where we stream. The YouTube channel is 100% men watching, men who are from 45 to 54. I don't know what that means, but where are you ladies? We saw that Anne was just watching. I don't know if they're not counting you, Anne. I don't know why. But anyway, I'm counting you. So thanks so much for being here. We'll be back in less than 11 minutes. Thank you, Erin. And thank you, Anne. Thank you, Kathy. Bye.